could talk. I'm JoyGenea with Solutions by JoyGenea.
And I'm Michelle with Bad Cat Digital. And you might notice from JoyGenea's background that she's in somewhere weird.
I am in Myrtle Beach, actually, South Carolina right now.
Well,
And I am
that's
in
super exciting.
the mobile work unit, which also is known as an RV, a truck camper RV, so small mobile work unit. And this would be my office, my current office location.
Well, and today we're going to talk about remote work, and we're going to talk about remote work from when your schedule or your space is disrupted. So in this particular case, remote work kind of on vacation. Because it's kind of
I'll catch you right there. I purposely, that's one of the items on my thing is your mental mindset.
Sure.
And that was one of the things I had to really get clear about. And we've talked about this for years. That's why I've rented a space from you. That's why I've always kind of had a little office space outside the house. And it's the same reason, like, why do you come into the office on the weekends if you're going to work?
Because I can't, I don't, remote work and I do not go together. Physical space is so important to me. I can force myself for a little while, but I'm very easily distracted by the needs of the space that I'm in. So if I'm somewhere else, like I would be in Myrtle Beach, I would be there with family and I'd be thinking about what everybody else wants to be doing. And, am I sucking the fun out of everything by working? And right. So I would be thinking about that. And when I'm at home working, I'm thinking about, the laundry and the dishes and the this and the that. And, has the husband eaten in the last four hours? And, I'm not thinking about work. Like it's really hard to concentrate.
All of those things.
Yeah.
Like, and I struggle with all of those things also from time to time. So that's added a component to this. One of the main reasons we left Minnesota was partially because it's so cold right now. And I wanted to seek warmer weather. What I would tell you is it's been 30 to 40 degrees down here most of the time we've been here. So I've not seen,
so it's not been like
not super, which makes it easier to work.
Right. Because you're not out enjoying some 70 degree weather.
I'm not missing a whole lot. Part of me wants to kind of be by my furnace.
Yeah.
and so going at this time of year has been a good first stretch of that. I would tell you, like, it's been a great first stretch of that. And I really appreciated it. And then the other thing I would add in there is also you just know there's going to be distractions. Like that's just part of it. And so the mental mindset that I had to really get at was I had to remove the word vacation.
Yeah. So
because in my mind,
so you have to walk away from vacation, because vacation then would mean that every minute you spend working, you're kind of resenting.
That's exactly how it felt. I was angry, bitter. I'd noticed it on a couple of retreats recently where I was working while I was at the retreat. And I'm like, I think this is going to happen while we do this traveling thing. And I'm like, I can't have that. Like, this will be very counterproductive. And so I actually really worked on it. And with my coach and stuff, like we drilled on it and we figured out it was all about the wording to help my brain recognize that I am just working in remote locations. I'm not. So the whole time as people are like, well, how's the vacation? I'm like, my remote working has been like, I've had to be really careful and just be like, my working in remote locations is going very well. I've had an opportunity to enjoy these things while also caring for my clients and, and take care of business.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Like, is that like a time thing? Are you able to be like, okay, from 8 a.m. to noon, I'm going to be remote working from these alternative locations? Or and then from noon to whenever I'm on vacation.
That would definitely be what I'm finding is structures and routines and schedules and communication, because I have a partner with me. So there's things going on. So it's about every day. I'm just like, okay, I have clients at these times. I also have about 2 hours worth of work that needs to be done. Like, let's look at the day. It's a lot of this. Let's look at the day. Then let's look at the weather. And then let's figure out what we can make, like what would be appropriate in that.
Right.
And so that's been, I try and get a lot of work done early in the morning because I'm a morning person. Yeah. So that helps out. But boy, that structure and routine has now kicked in at a different level, that when I'm in my office, I can, it's like I'm there from, 8 to whatever, and I'm kicking around doing certain things. Now I have to be more deliberate. Here's what needs to
Yeah.
happen. And
Well,
then
and my
yeah,
favorite thing about vacation is unstructured time. So I really like shifting the mindset, because whenever I leave for a trip or do something, I always bring my work stuff with me, but somehow nothing ever seems to get done.
that's because you're on vacation time. And that's it, right? And I
Right.
don't know about you. It took me years to get good at vacation time,
Well, yeah, that's
honestly.
the thing. Like, it took me a while to get good at it, and now I want to be good at it.
That's what we found out, is that it took years for me to get myself to do vacation. And now that I have that, I don't want to give that up. There are times to be on vacation,
Sure.
but this is remote working. This is a different, like
So
I
rather
have
than
to
blocking out large chunks of, like, say, 5 days for vacation, you're blocking out hours within the day in the locations for vacation, basically.
right, to enjoy the location and the space that we're in.
Yeah.
And it allows my husband, who is at a point where has more free time with his career and stuff, it allows him the opportunity to be more on vacation. Like he's
Right.
more in vacation mode and stuff.
Right.
And, and yet I'm not. And that it's working. The
That
other,
that that's cool.
and we're navigating. I would tell you, like, we're navigating that. That's part of the learning. We're navigating
Right.
some of that.
Right.
It is distracting to be somewhere beautiful on a really nice day. Like there were a couple of days that were really nice, and I was like, I don't want to go to work. And it was okay though. He was really nice, and that was really great that he was like, "Oh, it's okay. After you're, done with this client, we can go for this walk, or we can do this other
Mhm.
thing." And it was like, "Okay, thanks. I needed that."
Yeah.
Like I'm not missing everything in this beautiful place, you know.
Something that often comes up in new locations is, and one of the reasons I feel like it's very difficult to maintain like a schedule or like a pattern of living from one location to the next, is the unexpected can happen.
Okay.
Like you had planned to be in one location at a evening, and you didn't make it there, or the hotel was weird, or the restaurant wasn't open, or car trouble, or whatever. um,
Hmm.
how are you handling kind of those disruptions?
The same way, you know what? The same way we handled them at the beginning of COVID, the same way we handle them all the time in business.
Oh,
You take a deep breath, you go, "Oh hell, I need a bag of chips." And to think about this for a minute, I need to take a walk. I need, like truly it's just like, okay, we got to re-navigate that. Okay, that didn't quite, okay. Okay. Well, everybody's safe. We've got this mostly figured out. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. Okay. Like you
yeah,
go down the list of, is everybody safe and that kind of thing. And then it's like, okay, how are we going to handle that? Like when the truck broke down yesterday, what do we need to do? And it did take, I'd say it took me about 45 minutes to like get the gears grinding before I was like, I know how to handle this. I'm like, realtors are the greatest people to call for resources anywhere you are.
that's true. That's an excellent tip. If anybody ever takes anything out of this podcast ever, that is literally one of the best tips. I don't think we've ever talked about that. We should have a whole
Oh,
podcast about why real estate agents are the best resources in any
there
community. They know
they are.
everybody.
They do. They know
And they
everybody,
know,
especially if they've been,
yeah,
they know everybody. They know who's reliable. They know the
yep,
mechanics. They know the air conditioner guy. Like they know the
they know
people. So I was
everybody.
just like, oh, I'm like, I'll go on a BNI website and see who's working their business, right? And
Yep,
working hard at it, and see who kind of shows up,
yep.
because that helps weed it out. Like you have to have a filter. You can't just,
Yeah,
if I,
you don't just pick somebody out of the phone book. You have to know.
right. So
You could also use
that's
like a
just
local chamber of commerce
Chamber of Commerce. That's
website.
just it. It's like
Yeah.
find something
Better
where a
Business
realtor.
Bureau.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
just it. Like find a thing to weed that down. I just
Yeah.
happened to yank up the BNI and went, oh, Myrtle
Yeah.
Beach BNI, North Myrtle
Yeah.
Beach BNI. I'm like, perfect. And it was great. And they're like, well, I know, here's a guy. And I called that guy. And then that guy called another guy. And then before you knew it, we had a mobile guy that showed up and fixed the vehicle. Like, how awesome is that? Yes, there's a fee for that, people. Don't delude yourself in any way. But are we up and running today and able to move to our next location? Yeah. So I mean, that's it. It
Mhm.
all works together, but it's that flexibility. we were talking about that flexibility and structure. There's the structure. I still
Yeah.
had clients. So I was still watching the clock. And that's the other thing. I'm in a different time zone, which is really common also as people travel in and out of time zones.
Yep.
And I knew that was going to be an issue. And so and Michelle caught this a couple of weeks ago. She's like, how come your clock is fast on your phone? Like, how'd you manage that? And I told her, and it's part of my ongoing strategy about that is I take all of my devices off of automatically acclimating themselves to location.
Yeah.
That's
And that
removed. And so,
and that helps with your time blindness when you're traveling.
oh, exactly. Because my time blindness could be extraordinary, but my watch and my time all exist in central time.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And my husband changes his watch and the clock and the camera, like all of that I can look up and see. But for me, my devices and everything say, hey, this, like here's the time and you need to be places. So my
Mm-hmm.
calendar alarms go off at the right times and tell me. And when I add things to my calendar, they're not in the wrong time zone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, that helps me to stay anchored. And
Yeah.
it is funny because I'll wake up in the morning and be like right now, I'll be like, oh my gosh, it's 3:30. And I'm like, oh no, it's 4:30 in my world. I'm like, we're fine.
Okay, well, we'll talk about why you get up at
That
4:30 in the morning routinely anyway
to get stuff
later.
done. To get
Uh,
stuff done. So that's the
but
time I talked
not
about the
wake up
mental
when it's still dark
mindset.
outside. Um,
That's
but yeah,
having the right
and then
gear.
how do you handle space? Because I also one of the other challenges that I have is I'm a piler. I like to spread out. Like I often have like the notebook and the pen and the paper and then the mouse and then the computer and then the phone and the charger and it's like and it's all of a sudden I've got a whole 3x4 tabletop
Well,
filled. And
you
in
have a
a
desk.
hotel room that's shared with another adult, that's really hard.
It is, oh yeah, that's a great question. We are limited in space. That's the power of all of those additional tools. The CRM,
Oh,
the
sure.
task list, so nothing, there isn't a sticky note to write it on. It's like day one of the things, I'm like, we kept remembering things we hadn't packed that we were either going to need to buy or next time when we get home, like, we got to throw that in. Yeah, that was silly. We forgot that thing. But it was floating around and I'm like, pause, Google Doc. I'm just like, let me
Yeah,
just start a quick Google Doc. And now every time it comes up, I just have I stuck it on the screen and I just keep adding to it and I'll take it off when we get home. But I
sure.
recognized that I needed to use the power of my electronics. Yesterday, the truck was broken down. My computer battery was dying. And I'm like, how am I going to do anything? And I looked at my phone. And I'm like, oh, I don't love you, but I think I can do almost everything on you. Through you. I'm just like, we will be friends now. And so that, I was doing what I always tell people not to do, but I was like doing all of my business through my phone. And because I had the little battery backup. But that leads me to the next thing, which is having the right gear. I've
Yeah,
spent, we've had this camper now a year. I've spent the last year figuring out equipment. I have a Starlink in case of emergency so I can fire up satellite if we're in the middle of nowhere and there is no other internet. I'm going to fire
sure.
that up. Um, I bought a booster for our RV to bring it to amplify the cell signal, and that was brand new just for this trip. That's been huge. So,
Mhm.
and like yesterday, I was saying I was running out of battery life. Well, I have a battery backup booster, a giant heavy brick battery that
Oh,
I just hadn't
yeah.
thought about. I pulled that out. It didn't take long because the battery on my phone was dying and it was going longer and longer. I'm like, oh yeah, wait a minute. I have another tool. So I have backups for backups. That's what I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this and my clients pay for a service at a particular level and I want to make sure I'm providing that is
Yeah,
not for them to
yeah.
compromise because I chose to do this. So that's the other really important thing to me is that I've got gear, so I'm backed up on backup so that I'm able to provide the level of service that they've purchased and I can give them that quality.
You know what's so interesting because you're a solo entrepreneur. I know you have some help from some consultants and virtual assistants
Yep.
and things like that. Absolutely. But you still are the core, the day-to-day
Yes.
core. If you are not working, your business is not moving.
Correct.
And I've shifted my model. I'm not in that anymore. I have my own clients. I have, things that I'm essential at Bad Cat, but I'm not, like the day-to-day operations can continue for 3 or 4 days, maybe a week without
Hmm.
me. And there's other things that can extend that time that I can do remotely, right? Because I'm mostly responsible for, like, say, the billing and the, and the bill
Mhm.
pay, and that's account stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's time frames that I'm not
Mhm.
useless or unneeded, and it's not that my work's not essential. It's just that it's not necessarily day to day that way. It's not the same.
Mhm.
Business still continues if I get the flu, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so, but that doesn't mean that I can't grab some of these ideas from you, because I really do struggle. Creating and carving out. I'm really good at setting, like, this is the boundary. This is, like, I'm at work when I'm here. I'm at home when I'm here. I'm on vacation when I'm here. Um, but life doesn't always like all of those buckets, but health does, and you still want to maintain
Mhm.
some sense of boundary. So to create a boundary that isn't necessarily, that's malleable and isn't so tied to physical space, so that you can kind of carry that with you and create some of those systems. I think that's really, really cool, and I'm really excited that you are, kind of cracking that code for yourself, and helping everybody else.
And I think it really applies to business overall. After everything we've experienced, the opportunities that have arisen over the last few years about being more flexible and structured,
Yep.
I think that helped lend itself to this, honestly. Like, this has
Yeah.
been a dream of mine for a long time, but like so many dreams, they look really good on paper and they look really easy and they're like one sentence.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, like, if it were a 3D model, like, it would be a very thick sentence. Like, this is very deep and there's a lot more to it. But boy, it looked, on my goal list, it looked really, really simple.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm consistently reminded that it is a team effort. I couldn't do
It's not
this
always easy, right?
if I did not have a partner that was supporting it and making sure we were getting from location A to B.
Right.
That is one of the other things I have learned that I put in there. We I planned a lot of locations this time. There were 4 within 2 weeks.
Oh,
I'm looking forward to next time experiencing working from planting ourselves in one location to add more structure.
sure.
Yeah, my fear of missing out, like, this might be and I've always traveled kind of this way. I'm afraid we'll never get back there again. We'll never do this again. Something will happen, and so I need to do it all. Um, and
Sure.
I can be notorious for that first time traveling. And then typically when I go back or something, I'm like, no, no, no,
It's a
we
pretty
don't need to do it
grueling
like
that creates for a
this.
pretty grueling travel schedule.
It does.
Yeah.
And I tamed it back. Like, at one point there were 6 options and I was like, no, we're going down to 4. And I love the weather. Like, that's my favorite thing because you can't control it. And it
Oh,
reminds you
sure.
you
Sure.
cannot you don't have control over everything. Like the
It
truck breaking down
impacts
yesterday.
your
I don't have
choices, but
control over that.
you can't control it. I think one of the things that I find, in travel is that I am able to very quickly establish a new kind of routine in a single space. But like you said, it's more disruptive when you're kind of traveling consistently. When it's like, we're going to go here, and then 2 days later, we're going to be here, and then 3 days later, we're going to be there, and then a day later, we're going to be here. And when we do road trips, especially, I love road tripping, and when we
I
do
know
road
you do.
trips, um, 2 days in the car is about my max.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.5, because then I'm just like, by that point, it's like, if you get somewhere, you can only be there 2 or 3 days before you have to turn around and go back again. And then you
Right. You
spend
gotta
more
sandwich
time,
yourself back in the car.
yeah, and then you spend more time in the car than you do anywhere. So,
Right.
yeah, I think that there's kind of a radius that we're able to we're able to accommodate in those limits.
Oh, that is so true. So
But with
these are
but
go
I think
ahead.
it's one of those things that you learn about this stuff as you go, and it's different for every person. But I like the idea of developing a way to impose boundaries and structure no matter where you are. And so it's not so like the spaces are controlling those boundaries or those structures, or they're created around the physical spaces. They're created instead around your time, your goals, yeah, I think that's really good.
And that's definitely one of the thank you, because that is one of the things I can tell I'm going to be taking away from this experience is just because it is so fluid. I'm structuring the next day the night before, actually,
Yeah, it's
and I'm
kind
like,
of
here are
like
the
a
things
combination
I need to
between
get done and so
structure and
forth.
flexibility.
Yeah, so it's like, well, if stuff happens, then I'm like, okay, but these 3 things have to get done. Like, these are
Right.
non-negotiables that have to get done today, and that really helps having them there because, like, when the truck broke down yesterday, trust me, every marble that was up there went whoosh, nothing else matters. And then once we were waiting for the mechanic, all of a sudden I had this time, but I'd cleared this, like the whiteboard was clear,
Yeah,
and
your
I'm like,
brain was cleared.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh crap, what do I need to do? And I'm like, wait a minute, I wrote this down last night, and I pulled that out, and I'm like, just do step 1. And as soon as I dove into it, within minutes, I was like, oh yeah, and then and this has to get done. I got to put in.
Yeah, I've
It was
often
great.
found the challenge is starting, or the
It
challenge
is.
is, it's when you're in that moment when you have like 18 minutes in between something. You taught me this, and I think it's really, really, really great. You set a timer on your phone and just see how many things you can get done.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am constantly surprised. The things on my to-do list that I think a lot of things only will take 2 or 3 minutes.
I know.
But like it's almost like you have to ramp up to them.
Yeah.
And so if I set the timer, it's like that automatic ramp, and now I'm challenging myself to see, can I cross off 4 things on my list? Can I cross off 5 things on
Right.
my list?
What can I get done?
And I mean, that's not how I handle the things that are like deep brain work, but the things that are like, just get this stuff out of the way.
Right.
Just answer this email, create
Make
that
it.
task for somebody, just get this stuff done. It
Yeah.
works really, really well. And
Yeah.
I find myself, if I do that once or twice in the morning with a long to-do list, I feel
Right.
so accomplished that I'm like able to tackle the rest of the day. It's really good. I think we should do another cast about that. So we're write down
I was gonna
these
say I'm
additional
adding them
topics
to
we
my
came up
stuff.
with. But yeah, but I think we're wrapping up. Any final
Yeah.
thoughts about remote working from new and exotic locations like South Carolina?
I would just encourage people that are remote working.
Mm-hmm.
This is only a little step further. Like, because I hear that from a lot of people. They're like, well, I work remotely now. And I'm like, then why are you here freezing to death in Minnesota? Like, why are you not? And they're like, that's a good question. I'm like, and there's just, they feel like it's so big. And I would tell you,
Yeah.
what, small bites, test
Yeah.
drives. You go to, the test drive on this is you go to local Airbnbs. You don't have to travel far. You test drive it at a hotel or an Airbnb.
Yeah. Somewhere you
For
can go away for the weekend, or
right. Like,
yeah.
but well, you need to do it during the week because you're testing. Can you work remotely? Right.
Yeah,
So
but
you
if
do.
you do a long weekend, like you leave on
That's
a
true.
Thursday night or a Friday morning, you're
Mhm.
testing that. And then it's a soft test because it's one day out of that experience.
Yes. So that's what I encourage people, like, and that's what I kind of did. I ramped. This wasn't overnight. We ramped up. We figured out the equipment. We, what worked, what didn't. Talk to people. Oh my gosh, the beauty of RVing is there are a ton of people that are doing this. So you just ask people questions. How do you figure this out? Oh, I do this. How do you do that? Like, that part's really nice. And you'll find the same with remote people that are working in different new locations.
Mm-hmm.
They've got stories. They've been sharing it, and I followed a few of those blogs too. So that's my recommendation. If you are,
That's
in
cool.
particular, if you're able to step outside of your business a little bit and work remotely, switch the gear from, is it vacation or is it just you working in a new location?
That's really, really good. Great question to ask. Thank you,
Thanks for
JoyGenea.
joining us on If These Heels Could Talk. It has been a pleasure sharing with you, and we look forward to chatting with you next week when we get together again.
And JoyGenea is no longer working in remote locations.
As long as the weather permits, we will be re-entering Minnesota. That's the goal. We will see if that happens. That'll be
Well,
funny.
thanks, everybody.